I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I'd experienced loss before. Grandparents passing, friendships fading, career setbacks. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for the moment I walked into my Boston apartment on Valentine's Day weekend and found rose petals leading to my bedroom. Rose petals I hadn't scattered in the home I shared with my husband of 4 years. My flight from New York had been canceled due to weather, so I'd driven home through the night instead of staying at the conference hotel. I was exhausted, carrying my laptop bag and rolling suitcase, thinking only of crawling into bed next to David. We'd been together since college, 8 years total. He was my safe place, my best friend, the man who held my hand through my mother's cancer treatments, and cheered the loudest when I landed my first real design job. The apartment was quiet when I unlocked the door at 6 o'clock in the morning. Too quiet. David should have been getting ready for his Saturday morning gym session. Instead, I found his keys on the counter, his wallet beside them, and those rose petals, red ones, creating a trail from our living room down the hallway. My heart hammered as I followed them. This wasn't like David. He was thoughtful, but never extravagant. We'd agreed to skip Valentine's Day this year since I'd be traveling, so who were these for? I saw the heels first. Red stilettos kicked off carelessly near our bedroom door. My stomach dropped. I recognized those shoes. I'd helped my sister Victoria pick them out last month, watching her try on pair after pair at Nordstrom, while she complained that her marketing coordinator's salary didn't stretch far enough for the lifestyle she wanted. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I should have turned around. I should have left. Instead, I pushed it open with shaking hands. They were asleep. David's arm was draped across my sister's bare shoulder. Her dark hair fanned across my pillow. The pillow I'd slept on just 2 nights before. Empty champagne glasses sat on both nightstands. On my nightstand, Victoria's designer purse, the one she'd bought despite her supposed budget constraints, hung from my dresser chair. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a sob, something, because Victoria's eyes flew open. For a split second, I saw a panic flash across her face. Then incredibly, it shifted to something else. Defiance, almost like she'd been waiting to be caught. "Elena," she said, not even bothering to cover herself with my sheets. "You're home early." David woke then, confusion clearing into horror as he realized what was happening. "Elena, this isn't what..." My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from someone else's body. "Isn't you sleeping with my sister in our bed? Isn't you covering our floor with rose petals for her?" He sat up, reaching for his boxer shorts. "Please let me explain." "She's pregnant," Victoria said it flatly, sitting up too. No shame, no tears, just that same defiant stare. "I'm pregnant, Elena, with David's baby." The room tilted. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. "What?" 3 months. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach, a gesture so proprietary it made me want to scream. "We were going to tell you. We just needed to figure out the right time. The right time. The right time to tell me my husband had gotten my younger sister pregnant." I looked at David, searching his face for the man I'd married, the man who'd promised to love and cherish me. He couldn't meet my eyes. "How long?" I managed to ask. "Does it matter?" Victoria swung her legs over the side of the bed, my bed, and started gathering her clothes. She moved with such casual confidence, like she'd gotten dressed in this room 100 times before. Maybe she had. "Look, Elena, this isn't personal. It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated her words, tasting their absurdity. Repeatedly, for months, while I was working 60-hour weeks to help pay for David's MBA program, while I was taking care of his mother after her hip surgery, while I was planning our future. "That's exactly the problem," Victoria said, pulling on her dress. A red number I'd never seen before. "You're always taking care of everyone else. David needs someone who puts him first, someone ambitious, someone who seduces her sister's husband." She flinched at that, but only barely. "I'm sorry you're hurt, I really am. But David and I, we make sense together. We want the same things, the nice house, the country club membership, the right social circles. You've always been content with less." I looked at my husband again. "Is this true? Is this what you want?" He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there broke something fundamental inside me. Guilt, yes, but also relief, like he'd been waiting for this moment, for permission to stop pretending. "I love her, Elena," he whispered. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I do. And the baby. I can't just walk away from my child. But you can walk away from me. It's not like that. Get out. My voice was steady now, cold. Both of you, get out of my apartment. Actually, David started. My name's on the lease too, I said. Get out! The scream tore from somewhere primal. I grabbed Victoria's purse and threw it into the hallway. Get out before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. They left. Victoria collected her shoes and coat, while David pulled on yesterday's clothes, both of them moving with hurried efficiency. I stood in the hallway and watched them go, Victoria's hand finding David's as they waited for the elevator. Even then, she couldn't help herself. She leaned into him, staking her claim. When the elevator doors closed, I walked back into my apartment, locked the door, and systematically destroyed every rose petal I could find. I swept them into garbage bags, scrubbed the floors, stripped the bed, and shoved the sheets down the trash chute. Then I sat on my bare mattress and let myself shatter. I called my best friend Kesha. She arrived within an hour, still in her pajamas, carrying coffee and bagels I couldn't eat. She held me while I cried. Didn't say anything stupid like, "You'll get over this," or "everything happens for a reason." She just held me. "What do?" I finally asked. "First," Kesha said, "you call a lawyer, today, right now." I did. By noon, I had a consultation scheduled for Monday morning. By evening, I'd changed the locks, David's name on the lease be damned. By midnight, I'd packed every item that reminded me of him into boxes and left them in the building's storage room. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. 1 week later, David's mother, Linda, called a family meeting to discuss the situation. She said, like adults, I didn't want to go. Kesha practically begged me not to. But some stupid part of me thought maybe this was where they'd apologize, where Linda would be horrified by her son's betrayal and side with me, where my own parents would defend their daughter. The meeting was at a restaurant I'd always loved, an Italian place in the North End where David and I celebrated our anniversary every year. Linda had reserved a private dining room. When I walked in, they were all already there. David and Victoria sat together, her hand resting on the slight curve of her belly. Linda sat at the head of the table like a matriarch presiding over court, and my parents, my own mother and father, sat across from them, looking uncomfortable but resigned. Not shocked, not angry, resigned. Elena, thank you for coming, Linda began, as if this were a business meeting. Please sit down. I remained standing. What is this? We need to discuss the future, Linda continued. David and Victoria's future. And yours. My future. Yes. Linda folded her hands on the table. Hands I'd held after her surgery. Hands I'd helped with physical therapy exercises because David was too squeamish. I'll be frank, Elena. This situation is not ideal, but we need to handle it maturely. Victoria is carrying my grandchild. That takes priority. Takes priority over what? I looked at my parents. Are you hearing this? My father cleared his throat. Elena, honey, maybe you should sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want someone to explain why we're having a meeting about my husband cheating on me like it's a merger negotiation. Because it affects everyone, Linda said sharply. David and Victoria plan to marry. Obviously, that means you and David need to divorce quickly and quietly. I'll help with the legal fees if needed. I don't want this dragging out and creating ugly gossip. The room spun. You'll help with legal fees? How generous. I'm trying to be practical, Linda continued. Victoria's better suited to be David's wife. She's ambitious, socially adept, and frankly, she takes better care of her appearance. You're a lovely girl, Elena, but you've always been more comfortable. David needs someone who will elevate him professionally and socially. Someone stronger. My mother actually flinched at that, but she didn't speak. Victoria, I turned to my sister. You are really going to sit there and let her talk about me like this? Victoria had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. Elena, I know you're hurt. Do you? Do you know what it's like to have your sister, your own flesh and blood, betray you? To have your husband betray you? To have everyone in this room act like I'm the problem for not accepting this gracefully? We're not saying you're the problem. My father tried. We just want what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone, or what's easiest for you? I looked at him closely for the first time. Really looked. He'd aged since I'd last seen him 2 months ago. Lost weight. And my mother kept glancing at Linda with something that looked like fear. Suddenly, I understood. She has something on you, doesn't she, Linda? The silence was confirmation enough. Linda smiled, cold and satisfied. Your parents had some financial difficulties last year. The medical bills from your mother's cancer treatment, the mortgage, their business struggling. I helped them generously. I'd hate to have to call in those loans, but family dynamics can be complicated when obligations aren't met. She'd bought my parents' silence, bought their complicity in this nightmare. Elena, David said quietly, I never wanted it to happen this way. But Victoria and I were good together, and you deserve someone who loves you the way you deserve. I'm not that person. I should have been honest sooner. You should have been honest, I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my ears. You're right. You should have been honest before you married me, before I spent 4 years supporting you, before I helped pay for your MBA, before I nursed your mother back to health while you were too busy with school. You should have been honest before you destroyed my entire life. That's enough. Linda stood, her voice sharp with authority. You're being hysterical. This is exactly why David needs someone more composed, more mature. I looked around the table one more time, at David, who couldn't meet my eyes, at Victoria, who was studying her manicure, at Linda, radiating cold satisfaction, at my parents, trapped and silent. I'm done here, I said. David, you'll hear from my lawyer. Victoria, I hope you get everything you think you deserve. Linda, congratulations on your grandchild. I hope she inherits your moral compass. I turned to my parents. And you too. I hope whatever she paid you was worth your daughter's dignity. I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. The next 3 months were a blur of lawyers, asset division, and late-night crying sessions with Kesha. David fought me on everything, the apartment, the savings account, even the wedding gifts we'd received. His lawyer painted me as bitter and vindictive. My lawyer was competent but expensive, eating through my savings faster than I could replenish them. In the end, I got the apartment and half our savings, about $8,000 after legal fees. David got to keep his guilt-free conscience and his pregnant girlfriend. Linda got her perfect daughter-in-law, and my parents got to keep their house. I got my freedom, though I didn't feel free. I felt hollow. Kesha found me sitting on my empty apartment floor one night, surrounded by job rejection letters. The design firm where I'd worked had let me go. Restructuring, they said. But I knew the truth. Linda had connections. One word from her in the right circles. And suddenly my portfolio wasn't quite good enough. My work not quite fresh enough. You need to leave, Kesha said, sitting down beside me. I know. I can't afford this place much longer anyway. No, I mean leave Boston. This whole city is toxic for you now. You need a fresh start somewhere they can't touch you. Where would I even go? She pulled out her laptop and started scrolling. My college roommate lives in Austin. Says the tech scene is exploding. Tons of startups hiring creatives. Cost of living is lower, and it's 1,800 miles away from all of this. Austin, Texas. I'd never been, knew nothing about it except what I'd seen in movies. But Kesha was right. I couldn't rebuild my life in Boston. Every corner held memories. Every restaurant was somewhere David and I had celebrated. Every street reminded me of family dinners with people who'd chosen money over me. 2 weeks later, I loaded my Honda Civic with everything I couldn't sell or donate. Clothes, my computer, my design equipment, and a box of photo albums I couldn't bring myself to look through yet. Kesha stood in my empty apartment and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. You're going to be amazing, she whispered. You're going to show them all. I don't want to show them anything. I just want to forget they exist. Even better, the best revenge is not needing revenge. The drive to Austin took 27 hours. I stopped twice to sleep in rest area parking lots, too exhausted to find hotels, too numb to care about comfort. When I finally crossed into Texas and saw the Austin city limit sign, I pulled over and cried. Not sad tears this time, scared tears. What the hell am I doing tears? But also hopeful ones. I found a studio apartment in a neighborhood called East Austin. It was tiny, with a window AC unit that rattled and a kitchen barely bigger than a closet. But it was mine. Only mine. No shared memories, no ghosts. My $8,000 wouldn't last long, so I worked. God, I worked. I got a morning shift at a trendy coffee shop called Joe's, making lattes for the breakfast crowd. Afternoons, I'd pound the pavement with my portfolio, trying to convince local businesses to hire a graphic designer with a Boston accent and no Texas connections. Evenings, I haunted coffee shops with good Wi-Fi, taking on Fiverr gigs, logo designs, wedding invitations, business cards, anything that paid. The first year was brutal. I lived on ramen and discounted produce from Whole Foods. I wore the same rotation of 3 professional outfits to every interview. I cried most nights, exhausted and lonely and terrified I'd made a massive mistake. But slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice. Things started to shift. A local boutique hired me to redesign their branding. The owner loved it, referred me to 3 other businesses. Those clients referred me to more. Within 6 months, I was making enough from freelance work to quit the coffee shop. One of my clients mentioned a coding boot camp. If you can design it, imagine what you could do if you could build it too. I was skeptical. I'd never been particularly technical. But I took a free intro class on a whim and something clicked. The logic of it, the problem solving, the way you could create something from nothing with just your mind and a computer. I applied to a 12-week intensive program, got accepted with a partial scholarship, and threw myself into learning. That's where I met Marcus Johnson. Marcus was my coding partner for our final project. He was from Oakland, had a background in finance, and was transitioning into tech after burning out at a hedge fund. We were both older than most of our classmates, both running from something, both determined to build something new. We clicked immediately, not romantically, not at first. We were just 2 people who understood ambition and loss, and the desperate need to prove we could rise from the ashes. Our final project was a branding platform that used AI to generate custom design elements. It was clunky and had about 1,000 bugs, but the concept was solid. Our instructors loved it. More importantly, a venture capitalist attending our demo day loved it. What would it take to turn this into a real company, she asked. Marcus and I looked at each other. Neither of us had an answer, but that night, over cheap tacos and cheaper beer, we decided to find out. The next 2 years were a blur of pitch meetings, prototype development, investor negotiations, and learning to be business owners instead of employees. We called the company Brand Forge. Marcus handled the technical development and business operations. I led creative direction and client relations. We failed a lot. Our first product launch was a disaster. We nearly ran out of funding twice. Marcus and I had screaming arguments about feature prioritization and company direction, but we kept going. Slowly, Brand Forge found its footing. We landed our first major client, a mid-sized retail chain looking to refresh their identity, then another, then another. By year 3, we had 15 employees and had just closed a Series A funding round. By year 4, we'd been acquired by a larger marketing platform. Marcus and I negotiated to stay on as division heads with significant equity stakes. The acquisition didn't just secure our financial futures, it made us players in Austin's tech scene, which is how, 5 years after loading everything I owned into my Honda and fleeing Boston, I found myself standing in a hotel ballroom, looking at a guest list for the Austin Tech Gala, and seeing David Chen's name on the vendor list. My assistant had flagged it for me. Should I reach out and uninvite them? Say it's a conflict of interest? I stared at David's name for a long moment. David Chen, Sales Manager, Tech Vendor Solutions. Not even senior management, just middle tier. Exactly where he'd been 5 years ago, just in a different city. No, I said finally. Leave it, it's fine. It was more than fine, it was perfect. The gala was Brand Forge's biggest event of the year. We were the primary sponsor, hosting 300 of Austin's tech elite to raise money for coding education in underserved schools. The cause was personal to me. I'd benefited from that scholarship, and I wanted other people to have the same chance. I wore a midnight blue gown that had cost more than my first month's rent in Austin. My hair was professionally styled, my makeup flawless. I looked successful because I was successful. More importantly, I felt successful. I'd built this, not with anyone's help or approval, but through my own determination. Marcus met me at the venue entrance, looking sharp in his tuxedo. We'd grown closer over the years, our partnership deepening into something that might become romance eventually, but we were both too focused on the company to rush it. We had time, Ready to charm some millionaires into giving us their money, he asked. Born ready. The evening started perfectly. Speeches, networking, champagne toasts. I worked the room like I'd been doing this my whole life, when really I'd had to watch YouTube videos on gala etiquette just 2 years ago. I was talking to a potential investor when I saw them arrive. David walked in first, looking uncomfortable, in a suit that didn't quite fit right. He'd gained weight, lost some hair, but it was Victoria I couldn't stop staring at. She was still beautiful, objectively, she always would be, but there was something worn about her, tired. The designer dress she wore was a season out of date, and she gripped David's arm with a possessiveness that read as insecurity rather than affection. A child walked between them, a girl, maybe 4 years old, in a pink dress and patent leather shoes. My niece, the baby who destroyed my marriage before I even knew she existed. I watched Victoria scan the room, her gaze dismissive and bored, until it landed on the stage where my name was displayed in 10-foot letters. Presented by Brand Forge, founded by Elena Martinez and Marcus Johnson. Her face went white, completely, utterly white. She grabbed David's arm, whispered something urgent. He looked up at the banner, and I watched the realization hit him in real time. His mouth actually fell open. I could have approached them, could have gloated. Instead, I turned back to my conversation with the investor, laughing at something he'd said, completely at ease in my element. Let them come to me. They didn't, though, not at first. They tried to blend into the crowd, Victoria pulling David toward the bar in the corner farthest from the stage. But the venue wasn't that big, and eventually our circles overlapped. I was talking to a group of startup founders when Victoria materialized at my elbow. Elena, her voice was tight. I didn't realize you'd be here. I turned, letting surprise cross my face, like this was a chance encounter and not my event. Victoria, David. What a small world. David looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Elena, you look great, really great. Thank you. You both look well too. I glanced down at the little girl clinging to Victoria's leg. And this must be your daughter. What's her name? Olivia, Victoria said stiffly. She's beautiful. I meant it. The child had nothing to do with her parents' choices. How old? 4. Victoria's jaw was clenched so tightly I was surprised she could speak. I didn't know you were in Austin. 5 years now. Best decision I ever made. 5 years, David repeated, like he was doing math in his head. So you moved right after the divorce. Yes, fresh start. I smiled, easy and genuine. It worked out remarkably well. I can see that. Victoria looked around the ballroom like she was cataloging every expensive detail. So you're what, throwing parties now? Victoria, David's voice held a warning note. I'm co-founder and creative director of Brand Forge, I said pleasantly. We're the primary sponsor tonight. We're raising money for coding scholarships, actually. I benefited from one when I first moved here, and I wanted to give back. Victoria's expression flickered, something ugly and envious that she quickly masked. How noble of you, it's good business too. Investment in education, community building, brand visibility. Win-win-win. Marcus appeared at my side then, 2 champagne flutes in hand. Elena, the program director, wants to discuss the check presentation. Oh, sorry, am I interrupting? Not at all. Marcus Johnson. Meet David Chen and Victoria Martinez. We knew each other back in Boston. Marcus shook their hands politely, no recognition in his expression. I'd told him about my past, but in vague terms. He knew there had been betrayal, but not details. Not names. Chen and Martinez, Marcus said. Any relation to each other? I'm Elena's sister, Victoria said, emphasizing the connection like it still meant something. And David's my ex-husband, I added cheerfully. They married after our divorce. Small world, right? Marcus's eyes widened slightly, the only indication he was connecting dots, but his expression remained professionally neutral. Indeed. Well, I hope you're enjoying the evening. The silent auction has some great items if you're interested. He handed me a champagne flute and we started to move away, but Victoria's voice stopped me. Elena, wait. She looked almost desperate now. Could we talk? Privately? I considered refusing. I had every right to, but curiosity won. Sure, there's a hallway outside the ballroom. We stepped away from the crowd, Victoria practically vibrating with tension. What do you want? I asked. I need to know. She stopped, started again. How did you do this? How did you end up here while we're... She cut herself off. While you're what? David's been at the same level for 3 years, she said bitterly. We can barely afford Olivia's preschool. My parents had to co-sign our mortgage because our credit's maxed out. And you're throwing galas and running companies, and her voice cracked. How? I looked at my sister, really looked at her for the first time in 5 years. She was 30 now, should have been in her prime, but looked exhausted, defeated. I worked, I said simply. I left Boston with $8,000 and a broken heart. I worked 2 jobs. I learned to code. I took risks. I built something. But you had help, right? Someone must have... No. No family money, no connections, no husband to support me. Just me, my skills, and a lot of very cheap ramen. Victoria laughed, but it sounded like a sob. Meanwhile, I married David, thinking he was going places. That's what Linda promised. That he'd be a vice president by 30, that we'd have the house and the life, and... She looked back through the doorway at her husband, who was awkwardly holding Olivia while she squirmed. She was wrong about everything. About him. About me being better for him. About me being weak. Victoria flinched. She said you'd never amount to anything, that you were too soft, too unambitious, that I was the daughter-in-law she deserved. And instead, you got to be the daughter-in-law trapped by debt and disappointment, while I got to be free. Don't, her voice was sharp. Don't act like you're better than me. I'm not better than you, Victoria. I just made different choices. When my world fell apart, I decided to build a new one, instead of trying to steal someone else's. She absorbed that, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I was 25 and stupid, and Linda told me. She said you didn't appreciate David, that you were holding him back. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Did you love him? Did you ever actually love him? I don't know, she wiped her eyes. I thought I did. Now I think I just love the idea of winning. Of being the pretty sister, the successful one. The favorite for once. She laughed bitterly. Look how that turned out. Victoria, no, it's fine. I made my bed, right? Literally. She straightened up, tried to compose herself. I should get back. David's terrible with Olivia when she gets tired. She started to leave, then turned back. Elena, I know I have no right to ask, but our parents, they paid Linda back 2 years ago, sold their business to do it. They've tried to reach out to you multiple times. I'd blocked their numbers after the restaurant meeting, returned their letters unopened. I know they're sorry, truly sorry. What Linda did, the financial manipulation, they didn't know how to fight it. They were drowning and she threw them a rope with strings attached. They chose themselves over me, they did. And they've regretted it every day since. Victoria hesitated. I'm not saying you have to forgive them. God knows I wouldn't forgive me if our positions were reversed. But they love you. They never stopped loving you. She left me standing in that hallway, 5 years of anger and hurt swirling inside me. I didn't go back to the gala immediately. I stood there trying to process the conversation, trying to figure out what I felt. Eventually, Marcus found me. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Want to talk about it? Later? Right now, I have a speech to give and checks to present. I took his offered arm. Let's go change some kids' lives. The speech went perfectly. I told my story, the abbreviated version. Nothing about betrayal, just about second chances and the coding scholarship that changed my trajectory. I presented a check for $50,000 to the education program. The room erupted in applause. From the stage, I could see David and Victoria near the back. Victoria was crying again, but quietly. David held Olivia, who'd fallen asleep on his shoulder. They looked small, ordinary, not the villains of my nightmares, just 2 people who'd made selfish choices and were living with the consequences. I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication, just a gentle, grateful numbness. After the gala, Marcus and I sat in his car in the empty parking lot. Are you going to tell me what that was about? He asked. So I did. The whole story. Boston, the betrayal, the pregnancy, Linda's manipulation, my parents' weakness, the 5 years of rebuilding. When I finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. And I prompted. And nothing, that's your past. This, he gestured at the venue, at Austin, at the life we'd built. This is your present, your future if you want it. What if my past keeps showing up? Then we'll deal with it together. But Elena, you don't owe them anything. Not forgiveness, not closure, not explanations. They gave up their right to your energy when they chose themselves. What about my parents? Victoria said they paid Linda back, that they've been trying to reach out. That's your call. But make it for you, not because you think you owe them anything. I leaned my head against his shoulder. When did you get so wise? I have a very smart business partner. She's taught me a lot. I thought about my parents over the next few weeks. Thought about the phone calls I'd ignored, the letters I'd burned unopened. I remembered my mother holding my hand during her chemotherapy sessions. My father teaching me to ride a bike. All the years before everything fell apart. I also remembered their silence at that restaurant, their resignation, the way they chose financial stability over defending their daughter. In the end, I wrote them a letter, not a long one, just, I'm alive, I'm well, I'm successful. When I'm ready to talk, I'll reach out. Until then, please respect my need for space. I didn't forgive them, but I didn't completely close the door either. Maybe someday I would open it wider, maybe not. Either way, it would be my choice, made in my own time. As for David and Victoria, I never spoke to them again after that night. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they moved back to Boston within a year. David took a job at his father-in-law's company. They had another child. Linda eventually moved into their guest house. Still manipulating, still controlling. The best revenge wasn't watching them struggle. It was no longer caring whether they struggled at all. 2 years after the gala, Marcus proposed. We got married at a small ceremony in Austin, surrounded by the family we'd chosen. Friends, colleagues, the community we'd built together. Kesha was my maid of honor, flying in from Boston with stories about how the whole city still talked about that girl who left and made it big in tech. You're kind of a legend, she said. The cautionary tale mothers tell their daughters about not settling. I'm not a legend. I'm just someone who refused to accept less than I deserved. Exactly. That's what makes you legendary. 3 years after that, Brand Forge went public. Marcus and I rang the opening bell at NASDAQ, watching our company's ticker flash across screens around the world. I thought about 28-year-old me, crying on the floor of an empty Boston apartment, certain her life was over. I wished I could tell her, it's not over, it's just beginning, and it's going to be so much better than anything you lost. That night, Marcus and I sat on our balcony overlooking downtown Austin, drinking wine that cost more than my first month's rent. Any regrets, he asked. None, not even the painful parts. They made me who I am. That's very zen of you. I'm serious. If David hadn't betrayed me, I'd still be in Boston, designing logos for small businesses, married to a man I loved, but who never loved me enough. I'd be comfortable and safe and completely unfulfilled. So you're saying your ex-husband's affair was the best thing that ever happened to you? I considered that. The best thing that ever happened to me was choosing to leave, choosing to rebuild, choosing to believe I was worth more than what they said I was. I raised my glass. To second chances, Marcus echoed, and to the courage to take them. We clinked glasses as the Austin skyline glittered before us, full of possibility and promise and the life I'd built from ashes. I'd come to Texas with $8,000 and a broken heart. I'd left behind a family that failed me, a husband who betrayed me, and a sister who chose wrong. But I'd found something better. I'd found myself, and that was worth more than any revenge could ever be.